The millionaire's son was always sick, until the poor nanny found something under the bed. 6 o'clock in the morning. The sky over Seattle was veiled in a thin gray mist, the morning chill seeping through Clara Reyes's worn-out coat as she stepped off the bus. In her hand, she carried a small tote bag, a few clothes, a couple of tattered textbooks, and a letter of employment. After 3 long months of unemployment, she had finally found work as a nanny for a wealthy family's only child. Clara looked up at the grand Miller estate. Iron gates nearly 10 feet high, ivy crawling up the fences, and a stone path leading to a white 3-story house overlooking the sea. Beautiful, but unsettlingly silent. No laughter, no morning birdsong. Only the sound of ocean wind stirring the curtains inside, like the faint breath of something sleeping. She drew a deep breath to calm herself. "It's just a job, Clara. You need the money. Mom needs her medicine." The front door opened with a dry metallic creak. The woman who appeared made Clara hesitate. Olivia Miller, mid-30s, tall and slender, her blonde hair curled to perfection, wearing a pale turquoise dress that looked both elegant and expensive. Her smile was flawless, practiced, the kind born from years of social dinners and silent competition. But her gray-blue eyes were cold as ice, assessing Clara like a specimen. "You're Ms. Reyes?" "Yes, ma'am. I'm Clara, Ethan's new nanny." "Come in. We don't have much time." Her voice was steady, low, yet commanding enough to make Clara instinctively straighten her back. Inside, the mansion gleamed, spotless, perfectly arranged, but the air felt heavy, devoid of warmth. They walked down a long marble hallway, light reflecting off the polished floor. On the walls hung portraits, a middle-aged man and a small boy. "That's my husband, Daniel Miller, and his son Ethan," Olivia said, tone flat. "You'll take care of Ethan during the day, meals, reading, walks, everything he needs, mostly in his room. The boy has respiratory problems, so he must avoid any physical strain." "I understand," Clara murmured, though a quiet doubt stirred inside her. What kind of childhood is that? A room and a schedule? At the foot of the staircase, Olivia turned, her gaze sweeping Clara from head to toe. "I hope you understand the importance of your role. Ethan is a special child. Follow every instruction exactly as written, especially the medication schedule." "Medication?" "Yes, 6 different kinds, each at its time. Just follow the list. And remember, don't ask questions." Clara pressed her lips together. "Yes, ma'am." "Your room's upstairs, breakfast at 7. You'll meet Ethan afterward." Olivia turned away, her heels clicking sharply on the marble floor, leaving Clara standing in the vast, echoing space. Morning light streamed through the windows, coating the cream-colored furniture in a soft glow. Beautiful, yes, but the house felt unwelcoming, as though it resented the sound of human footsteps. Upstairs, Clara opened the small guest room assigned to her, a wooden bed, a tiny desk, a window facing the ocean. The breeze carried salt and cold air. From that window, she could see the backyard garden and an old rusted swing, unmoving, forgotten for years. She set her bag down and sat on the bed, her heart tangled in uncertainty. For months, she had been on the verge of despair. Her mother, Lucia, lay in a public hospital, needing expensive medicine. This job was her only chance to keep her alive. Yet something about this house, its silence, its order, made Clara uneasy, as if secrets lived within its walls. Outside, the waves crashed against the cliffs. Clara looked out the window and whispered softly, "Ethan, who are you, and why do they call you a special child?" Morning settled softly over the Miller mansion, too quiet to feel real. The old clock ticked steadily, its sound echoing faintly through the air, mixed with the scent of freshly brewed coffee. Clara sat at the edge of the long dining table, silently taking in the perfection around her. Sunlight filtered through white curtains, scattering pale reflections across crystal glasses and polished silverware. Everything looked flawless: toast, sliced fruit, a jug of orange juice in its precise place. Yet the table felt lifeless, as if no one had laughed here in years. Across from her sat Olivia Miller, poised like she had stepped out of a magazine. Golden waves of hair, soft pink lips, and eyes so cold they made Clara straighten unconsciously. Every movement of hers seemed rehearsed, performed. "Mr. Miller is away?" Clara asked quietly, just to pierce the stillness. "He's always busy," Olivia replied, eyes still on her paper. "He rarely stays home long." The silence that followed was thick. Then Olivia folded her newspaper and checked her watch. "Ethan is waiting upstairs. Don't talk too much. Don't tire him. He's weaker than you think." Clara rose and made her way up the white staircase. The hallway stretched endlessly, lined with lifeless still-life paintings. Her footsteps echoed faintly, swallowed by the emptiness. At the end, a white door bore a small brass plate. "Ethan." She knocked gently. "Come in," came a soft voice, thin as breath. She opened the door and froze. The room was bright and spacious, yet cold, sterile. The faint scent of antiseptic lingered. Everything was neatly arranged: a bed with white sheets, a medicine cabinet, a humidifier humming in the corner. No drawings, no colors, no toys. It looked like a hospital, not a child's room. On the bed sat Ethan, a frail boy of 9 with skin pale as paper and lips tinged faintly blue. His eyes stopped her, gentle, intelligent, but far too old for his age, as though he'd already seen too much sorrow. "Hi, Ethan. I'm Clara, your new nanny." "I know," he murmured, voice tired and raspy. "Ms. Olivia said you'll take care of me while she's busy." Clara smiled softly and pulled up a chair beside his bed. "How are you feeling today?" "The same? Just tired?" He coughed lightly, hiding it with a small hand. Clara looked around, her chest tightening at the emptiness. "Don't you have any toys?" "I used to, but my stepmom said toys make me too excited. It's bad for my heart." "What about books or stories?" "I like adventure stories," he said after a pause, "but she says I shouldn't get too happy. Strong feelings make me sick." Clara turned toward the window, the sunlight faint across her face. "But you know," she said gently, "sometimes happiness makes us stronger." Ethan blinked, surprised. "You really think so?" "I'm sure of it." He smiled faintly, a fragile little curve of warmth. "You sound like my mom." Clara felt her heart twist. "You miss her, don't you?" "Yes," his voice trembled. "Since she died, I'm not allowed in the garden anymore. Olivia says the wind out there could make me worse." Clara glanced toward the window. Beyond it lay a quiet green yard and a rusted swing under the tree. Still, forgotten. She imagined a laughing boy once playing there before someone locked him away. Pity stirred inside her. And something darker. Suspicion? "Would you like me to read you a story?" she asked softly. "Yes, please, but not too long," Ethan whispered. "Olivia doesn't like me getting too excited." "All right, I'll read it gently." She pulled a small storybook from her bag and began to read. Her voice was low and warm, telling of a boy who sailed across the ocean, searching for treasure. As she spoke, Ethan's eyes lit up, that faint spark of wonder returning, small but unmistakable. The light of a child's soul. Clara read slowly, each word drifting like a calm tide through the sterile room. And then, for the first time since she'd entered that house, she heard it. A laugh, small, real, beautiful. The door creaked open. Olivia stood there, expression unreadable. "It's time for your medicine." Ethan's smile vanished. He obediently took the tray of pills, 6 of them, swallowing one after another. Within minutes, his eyelids began to droop. Clara's heartbeat quickened. He was falling asleep too fast. Olivia caught her gaze. "Don't look so shocked. This is normal for him." Then she turned and left, the echo of her heels fading down the hall. Clara sat in silence, watching the boy's breathing slow under the weight of forced sleep. Outside, the ocean wind whispered against the glass. She looked at him and thought, with a tremor in her chest, "No, Ethan, nothing about this is normal." Clara stayed by the bed long after Olivia left. The ocean murmured softly against the cliffs, blending with the steady rhythm of Ethan's breathing. He slept deeply, too deeply. It didn't feel like natural rest, but something forced upon his body. She studied his still face, those lashes trembling faintly, and sighed. A strange feeling stirred inside her, a mix of tenderness and dread. In the days that followed, Clara began to notice more. Every morning, Olivia would arrive with a silver tray lined with bottles and 6 neatly arranged pills. "Right on time," she would remind, "not a minute late." After each dose, Ethan would fade away, his words slow, his eyes dull, his little body sinking under invisible weight. Sometimes Clara had to call his name twice just to get him to open his eyes. She started taking notes. The exact hour of each dose, his pulse, his behavior before and after. It felt less like caregiving and more like quietly documenting a medical experiment. A chilling pattern appeared. Before the medicine, Ethan was alert, curious, even playful. Afterward, he was gone, a shadow of himself. One afternoon, when Olivia went out to meet the family doctor, Clara stayed behind to draw with Ethan. He sketched with trembling hands, a rough outline of a garden, a swing beneath a tree. "You miss that place, don't you?" she asked softly. He nodded. "Olivia doesn't let me go out anymore. She says the wind carries germs." Clara met his gaze. There was sadness there, but beneath it, fear. "Do you believe her?" He hesitated. "If I don't, she gets angry." The words hit Clara like a blade slipping between ribs. She smiled faintly to comfort him, but her hands clenched the notebook on her lap. In this house, she realized, affection had been replaced by control. That night, after Ethan had fallen asleep, she began tidying up. As she bent down to pick up her notebook from under the bed, her phone's light flickered across something metallic. She froze. Reaching farther, her fingers brushed against a small wooden box. The lid creaked as she opened it. Inside were dozens of empty medicine bottles, carefully lined up. Their labels didn't match the ones Olivia used daily. Clara's breath caught as she picked one up. Diazepam, for adult use only. Another read lorazepam, high-dose sedative. The faint scent of syrup clung to the glass. Her hands trembled. In that instant, everything made sense. The rapid drowsiness, the vacant eyes, the constant lethargy. Ethan wasn't sick. He was being drugged. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Panic surged through her chest. Clara snapped the lid shut and shoved the box back under the bed, forcing her face to stay calm just as the door opened. Olivia stepped in, her heels clicking softly on the floor. "What are you doing?" "Just cleaning up," Clara said quickly. "Ethan just fell asleep." Olivia's gaze swept across the room, lingering on Clara a little too long. Then she smiled, thin, calculated. "Good. Keep it that way. Don't let him stay up late." The door closed behind her, leaving silence so dense Clara could hear her own heartbeat. She stood there, frozen, the truth pressing against her chest like a weight. From that moment, she knew she was no longer just a nanny. She was the only person in this house who could see what was truly happening. And if she didn't act soon, the boy might never truly wake up again. That night, Clara barely slept. The image of those empty bottles haunted her like a wound that refused to heal. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ethan's pale face sinking into a sleep too deep, his lips colorless, his breathing faint like a candle about to die. The truth was undeniable now. The boy wasn't sick. Someone was making him appear that way. The next morning, when Olivia brought in the tray of pills as usual, Clara was already waiting, trying to steady her eyes. 6 pills, 6 colors. 6 silent needles piercing her conscience. Olivia's tone was brisk. "Right on time, Ms. Reyes. Ethan must take every single one, no exceptions." Clara nodded, smiling faintly. But in her mind, something dangerous had begun to form. When Olivia left, Clara picked up the tray, her hand trembling slightly. Ethan looked at her, tired yet curious. "Ms. Clara? Are you afraid of bitter medicine?" The innocent question made her smile sadly. "I'm not. But sometimes, Ethan, there are things far more bitter than medicine." She poured half of one syrup bottle into the cup. The rest she discreetly spilled into the plant by the window. Her hands were cold. "What are you doing?" Ethan asked softly. "Just making it lighter," she whispered. "Today, we'll try something a little different." He blinked in confusion but obeyed, drinking quietly. Clara stayed beside him, watching every tiny shift in his expression, every breath. Time stretched painfully slow, marked only by the ticking clock. An hour passed. He was still awake. 2 hours later, Ethan looked up, eyes wide with surprise. "Miss Clara, I feel strange." "How strange?" "I'm not sleepy. My body feels lighter, like I could stand." Clara's heart skipped. "Do you want to try?" He hesitated, glancing at the door. "I'm scared. If Olivia finds out, she won't. I'm here. No one has to know. Come on." She reached out her hand. His tiny fingers, weak but warm, slipped into hers. With a trembling effort, Ethan pushed himself up. Clara supported him, and then, impossibly, he was standing. They stared at each other in disbelief. A smile broke across his face, small, trembling, but real. "I'm standing." Clara felt tears sting her eyes. She wanted to hug him, but only placed a hand on his shoulder. "See? You're stronger than you think." The joy of the moment shattered at the sharp sound of heels in the hall. Clara quickly helped him back to bed, pulled the blanket over him just as the door opened. Olivia entered, eyes sharp and cold. "What are you doing?" "Just reading to him," Clara said evenly. "He wanted to hear about the ocean." Olivia's gaze swept the room, her presence like frost. Ethan held his breath. After a long moment, Olivia nodded. "Good. Keep him quiet." When the door closed, Clara still didn't breathe. Ethan looked at her, whispering, "Thank you." "Shh," she replied. "We'll try again tomorrow." The next morning, when Olivia went out to meet a friend, Clara knew it was time. She decided to stop the medicine completely for one day. Her pulse raced as she told Ethan, "Today you won't take anything. Just breakfast. If you feel unwell, I'll help you." He was nervous but agreed. The morning passed peacefully. He slept lightly, not the heavy drugged sleep she'd seen before. When he awoke, there was color in his cheeks. His eyes were brighter. "Ms. Clara, I'm hungry." Her heart swelled. "That's a wonderful sign." At noon, he finished his bowl of oatmeal and pointed to the small table near the window. "Can I sit there?" "Of course." She helped him up, step by step, until he reached the chair. The sunlight fell across his face, lighting his eyes like polished amber. In that moment, Clara knew she had been right all along. Those medicines weren't curing him. They were destroying him. She clenched her notebook in her hand, eyes drifting toward the sea, where the waves broke white against the rocks. For the first time since she entered this house, she felt real fear. Not of Olivia, but of the truth unraveling before her, a truth so cruel she wasn't sure she could bear it. But when she looked back and saw Ethan smiling faintly by the window, she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She wouldn't stop now. That afternoon, the sky was heavy with fog. Wind from the sea rattled the windows, making the curtains snap and flutter. Clara sat in her small room, the notebook before her filled from top to bottom. Times, reactions, every moment Ethan grew drowsy, every change in his breathing. The truth was forming in her hands, line by line, but she needed proof, something no one could deny. That evening, when Olivia left for a charity gala, Clara crept down to the kitchen. She knew where Ethan's medicine was prepared, the wooden cabinet beside the bar. Her hands trembled as she opened it, heart pounding so loud she feared it would echo. Inside, rows of glass bottles lined neatly. Vitamin C, bronchodilator, allergy relief. Perfectly labeled. Too perfect. She no longer trusted the labels. Carefully, she drew a few drops from each bottle using small pipettes, transferring them into miniature vials she had brought from her room. Each faint click, as the lids closed, sent a chill down her spine. Outside, the wind whistled through the cracks like a warning. When she slipped the vials into her bag, footsteps sounded in the corridor. Her pulse spiked. She switched off the kitchen light and hid behind the door. The sound of high heels echoed, slow, deliberate, stopping just outside. Silence pressed in. Then, after an eternity, the steps moved away. Clara exhaled, knees nearly giving out. The next morning, she called her old friend, Lucas, a pharmacist who worked in a small lab downtown. Her voice shook but stayed steady enough to carry resolve. "Lucas, I need your help. It's about some medicine." "For a child." "What kind of medicine?" "Clara, you sound off." "I can't explain on the phone. I'll bring the samples." That afternoon, she waited until Olivia left and asked the driver to take her into the city. She held the small bag close, her fingers pale from gripping too hard. The lab was on the second floor of an old building, the faint smell of chemicals oddly comforting. Lucas greeted her with surprise. "It's been forever. You look exhausted. What's going on?" Clara placed the bag on the table, taking out the tiny bottles. "I need you to test these. Tell me what's really inside, no matter what the result is." He studied her face, concern deepening. "Who are these for?" "A little boy. They say it's for respiratory problems, but I don't believe that. I think it's something else." Lucas hesitated, then nodded. "All right. Give me a few hours." "Thank you, Lucas." Her voice broke slightly as she squeezed his hand. She spent the waiting hours in a small cafe across the street, watching rain blur the city lights. Every minute felt like an eternity, each tick of the clock pulling her further into fear. Near midnight, her phone buzzed. Lucas's voice was low, urgent. "Clara, where are you? Come back to the lab right now. We need to talk." When she arrived, he was waiting at the door, pale and tense. "These samples," he took a breath. "They're not what the labels say." "What do you mean?" "The bottle labeled bronchodilator is actually haloperidol, a powerful antipsychotic. The one marked vitamin C is midazolam, a surgical sedative. They're all central nervous system depressants, high dose. These could turn a healthy child into—" He searched for words. "A shell." Clara's vision blurred. Oh my God. If a child's been taking these for long, the damage could be permanent. Neurological injury, respiratory failure, even death. Lucas's voice dropped. "Who's giving this to him?" Clara met his eyes, tears streaking her cheeks. "His stepmother. And if I'm right, she knows exactly what she's doing." Clara left the lab just before dawn. The city was silent under a thin veil of fog, the streetlights casting faint halos over the wet pavement. In her hands was the small folder Lucas had given her, the test results, the samples, the truth, the bold words, haloperidol, midazolam, Lorazepam stabbed at her eyes. There was no doubt left. Ethan was being poisoned, slowly, carefully, methodically, under the guise of medical care. As the car drove back toward the mansion, anger began to rise within her, a cold, steady fury. She could still see Olivia's flawless smile, the calculated grace of every movement, the perfect performance of compassion. A woman who killed without lifting a knife. When the car stopped by the gate, dawn had turned the sky gray. Clara took a deep breath and stepped out. The air was sharp with salt. "Clara, if you're right, she's dangerous. Don't confront her alone," Lucas had warned. But she couldn't wait any longer. The morning passed in uneasy calm. Olivia seemed oddly cheerful, sipping coffee in the living room, reading the newspaper with a thin smile. Ethan, under Clara's watch, looked brighter, livelier. But Clara knew it would only take one more dose to drag him back into the fog. By late afternoon, when Olivia began preparing the evening medicine, Clara decided. She walked into the kitchen, clutching the paper bag. "Olivia, we need to talk." Olivia turned, her gaze sharp. "About what, Clara?" "About what you've been giving Ethan." Silence fell heavy between them. The wind hissed against the window panes. Then Olivia smiled faintly. "I'm not sure I understand." Clara set the folder on the table. "I had the medicine tested. These are the results." Olivia's smile faded. She placed her cup down slowly and looked up. The warmth drained from her eyes, leaving only ice. "You've crossed a line, Clara. I'm trying to save a child from being slowly poisoned." Olivia laughed, a brittle, hollow sound that cracked through the room. "Poisoned? Don't be ridiculous. I'm maintaining order. The boy is fragile. You wouldn't understand." "Fragile?" Clara stepped closer, voice shaking but firm. "Or are you afraid he's not? Afraid Daniel will see that Ethan isn't sick at all? That you made him this way?" Olivia stood, heels tapping softly against the marble floor. "You think you know so much, don't you? You're just a nanny. You don't belong in this world." "This world?" Clara snapped. "Of lies and money? You're torturing your husband's son for an inheritance. That's not a world, it's a cage." Olivia's expression hardened, a flash of something venomous in her eyes. "Daniel is worth more than you can imagine. When Ethan turns 18, everything becomes his. I'm simply ensuring that doesn't happen." Clara's stomach turned. "You mean to disable him, so you can take control?" "I don't need to kill him," Olivia said calmly. "Just limit him. A damaged heir can't inherit. I've done this before, and no one ever proved a thing." Clara's hands trembled. "You're insane." Olivia smiled faintly, stepping closer. "And you're naive. Do you really think anyone would believe you? A poor, desperate nanny accusing me, Olivia Miller, of poisoning a child? You'd lose everything." Clara backed toward the wall, but her eyes didn't waver. "Maybe, but I won't let you hurt him again." "You won't have the chance." Olivia reached for a fruit knife on the counter, the blade glinting under the light. "I despise people who don't know their place." The kitchen was dead silent, except for the rain tapping on the windows. Clara's pulse roared in her ears, but she didn't move. "You can kill me if you want," she said, voice trembling but clear. "But it won't save you. The results are safe elsewhere. If I disappear, the truth will find you." Olivia froze, just for a heartbeat. Then a cruel smile touched her lips. "Clever girl." Clara stepped back toward the door, gripping the folder tightly. "I don't need to be clever. I just need to protect him." Olivia didn't reply. She simply watched as Clara left the kitchen, that thin, icy smile never leaving her face. By the time Clara reached the hallway, her legs were shaking. She knew one thing for certain now. The real battle had just begun. After the confrontation in the kitchen, Clara returned to her room, her heart still pounding. Olivia's cold, knife-like stare haunted her. If she stayed, there would be no tomorrow. She had to take Ethan away. Tonight. Ethan's room was dark and quiet. He slept peacefully, his thin face soft under the dim lamp. Clara touched his shoulder. "Ethan, wake up. We have to go." "Go? Where?" "Away from here. I'll explain later. Do you trust me?" He hesitated, then nodded. "I do." Clara wrapped him in a coat, tucked her notebook and the test results into her bag. Downstairs, the clock struck midnight. They slipped into the hallway, blue safety lights flickering across the walls like ghostly veins. As they reached the stairs, a light flicked on behind them. Olivia's door. Clara pulled Ethan behind the curtain. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. Olivia emerged, dressed in silk, holding a glass of red wine. "You're still awake, Clara?" She forced her voice calm. "I was checking on Ethan. He was coughing." Olivia smiled faintly. "So caring. But tomorrow you'll be relieved of duty." "Why?" "Because I don't like the way you look at me." Olivia turned, a drop of wine falling to the floor like blood. When her door closed, Clara pulled Ethan out. The front door was locked. The key, gone. She led him through the kitchen, tried the back door. The rusty lock clicked softly open. Rain greeted them, cool and salty. "It's been so long since I went outside," Ethan whispered. Clara squeezed his hand. "You're free now, my dear." Then, lights behind them. Olivia's voice cut through the storm. "Clara!" She turned. Olivia stood in the doorway, hair wild, eyes burning. "Stop! You'll regret this." Clara ran, dragging Ethan with her. Rain lashed their faces. Thunder boomed above. Olivia's heels clattered behind them. "Almost there, Ethan! The gate's ahead!" Headlights flashed on the road below. Clara waved desperately. A truck screeched to a halt. "Please, there's a child!" The driver saw Ethan's drenched face and opened the door. Clara pushed him inside, then climbed after. "Go, please, just drive." As the truck sped away, Clara looked back through the rain-streaked window. The mansion glowed behind them, Olivia framed in the doorway, motionless, eyes like knives. Ethan clung to her arm, trembling. "Ms. Clara, are we safe now?" She looked ahead, her voice barely a whisper. "Not yet, Ethan, but at least we're leaving the darkness behind." By morning, the rain had stopped, leaving the scent of salt in the air. A fisherman drove Clara and Ethan to the small coastal police station. The boy was weak but alert, his eyes clearer than they had been in weeks. Clara held his hand tightly, knowing this moment would change everything. Daniel Miller arrived soon after. His face was drawn, sleepless, grief etched in every line. When he saw Ethan, he froze. "Ethan," he whispered, dropping to his knees. "My son." "Dad," Ethan breathed, his small voice fragile but steady. "I missed you." Daniel pulled him close, sobs breaking free. Clara turned away for a moment, tears burning behind her eyes. For the first time, she felt the weight of fear begin to lift. When calm returned, she reached into her bag and pulled out the envelope she had guarded all night. "Mr. Miller," she said softly, "you need to see this." Daniel looked at her warily as she spread the documents on the table. "These are the lab results from the medicine Olivia gave Ethan. They're all sedatives, haloperidol, midazolam, lorazepam. None are respiratory treatments." He stared at the pages, his hands trembling. "Dear God." "Ethan was never sick," Clara continued. "He was being drugged, slowly, deliberately. I didn't understand why until Olivia mentioned your inheritance." Silence fell heavy over the room. Only the ticking clock and the distant crash of waves filled the air. Daniel clutched the papers, his voice breaking. "I failed my son," he whispered. "I let that woman into our lives. I let her hurt him." Clara said nothing. Ethan squeezed his father's hand. "It's okay, Dad. I'm better now. Miss Clara saved me." Daniel turned to her, eyes shining with gratitude and guilt. "Thank you. If it weren't for you, I would have lost him forever." Outside, sirens wailed. Moments later, a detective entered the room. "We've searched the house. Mrs. Olivia Miller was there. We found empty bottles and forged medical documents in her desk." Clara lowered her head. She always knew how to hide things. "Not this time," the detective said grimly. Soon after, Olivia was brought in, hands cuffed, hair disheveled, but still wearing that faint, defiant smile. "Daniel," she purred. "You believe her? That poor little Nanny?" Daniel faced her, voice cold. "I believe the evidence, and I believe my son." Olivia's smile faltered. "You don't understand. I did it for his own good." "For his good?" Daniel's tone hardened. "You poisoned my child, Olivia. You killed the last of my love for you." Her face twisted in rage. As officers dragged her away, she screamed, "You'll regret this. You all will." But the heavy door slammed behind her, and silence returned. Daniel turned to Ethan and Clara, pulling them both into his arms. His tears soaked her shoulder. "Thank you," he whispered. "You didn't just save my son. You saved me." Clara smiled faintly, her chest light for the first time in weeks. Outside, sunlight broke through the clouds, spilling across the room like forgiveness. The nightmare was finally over. A year had passed since the nightmare ended. The seaside mansion no longer felt haunted. It was filled with laughter and light. Ethan recovered quickly, every breath, every step a small miracle. No longer trapped in drugged dreams, he now ran freely through the garden that had once been forbidden, his laughter echoing like a song of rebirth. She stayed, not as a nanny anymore, but as part of their lives. Each morning she walked with Ethan, telling him stories about the world beyond the sea, migrating birds, distant cities, dreams unchained. Daniel often watched them from the porch, eyes calm and full of gratitude, as though peace had finally found its way back to him. One golden afternoon, Daniel joined her by the veranda. "He's getting stronger every day," he said softly. Clara smiled. "Ethan has a brave heart. Maybe because of him and because of you, I've learned to breathe again too." Daniel looked at her quietly. "Stay, Clara. Not as an employee. Stay because this is already our home." She hesitated, then nodded. "I will." From that day, the house came alive. Mornings smelled of coffee and warm bread. Evenings glowed with candlelight and laughter. Daniel and Clara cooked together. He was clumsy. She teased him gently. And Ethan danced around them, his joy filling every corner. Love grew silently between them, like sunlight seeping through cracks after a long storm. One morning, Clara's mother, Lucia, arrived from the city. Her hair had turned silver, her smile still tender. Seeing her daughter safe and radiant, she said softly, "I prayed every night for you to find where you belong." Clara hugged her, tears slipping down her cheek. "I found it, Mom. I truly did." Lucia looked at Daniel and Ethan and smiled. "Family isn't where you're born. It's where you are loved." That autumn, Daniel planned a small celebration in the garden, the same place that had once carried the weight of their sorrow. The air was cool, the leaves golden, the sea calm. Ethan played with the family dog nearby, while Clara watched him, peace shining in her eyes. "I can't believe this place used to scare me," she murmured. Daniel came closer, his voice low. "Because you turned it into home. You didn't just save my son, Clara. You saved me." When she turned, he was kneeling on the grass holding a small ring. The sunset wrapped them in honeyed light. "I can't promise perfection," he said, "but I promise to walk beside you through every season, with Ethan and with love." Clara's tears fell as she nodded. "Yes." Ethan ran up, beaming. "Dad?" she said. "Yes?" Daniel laughed, pulling him close. "Yes, son. She's part of our family now." The wedding was simple. No grandeur, no glitter. Just white flowers, a few dear friends, and a love that needed no audience. Lucia held Clara's hands and whispered, "You've found happiness, my brave girl." As the last light of day spilled across the garden, Ethan lifted his glass of orange juice and declared solemnly, "Now I have both a mom and a dad." Laughter rippled through the air, blending with the soft rhythm of the sea. And in that golden hour, Clara knew the past had finally healed, and love had done what it always does best: make broken things whole again.